So thank you for finding the time, everybody, to join today for the updates on Meilisearch's latest. We have, as I mentioned, a very exciting roster of speakers today. We have product updates, what just dropped. We will also be talking about the releases that are just coming up, so you'll get an exclusive sneak peek for what's coming next week. You'll also have some demos, and we'll talk about the roadmap as well within this presentation. So what's an agenda to give a bit more detail? We'll start with a keynote from Quintan, Meilisearch CEO. A lot of you might be already familiar with him. He'll talk about the AI democratization. Then we'll have what's new in Meilisearch Cloud. You'll hear from our product team, the roadmap, performance improvements, as I mentioned, what's new, what's just dropped, and what we can get excited about for next week. We will see the demo from the DevRel, and I'm sure this is something that we've all been waiting for here. So that's the culmination of our presentation today. And then, as promised, we'll have the time reserved for some Q&A live discussion. I will encourage everybody to drop the questions in the chat throughout the presentation. And then by the end, when we are ready to go into the discussion with the experts, feel free to also unmute yourselves, ask your questions live. If we don't manage to get to all of your questions, we'll make sure to follow up. So even if there's a lot coming in, just feel free to drop it still in the chat and we'll get to you. If not, within this hour, then later on. So once again, let's meet our speakers. We have quite a busy roster today. So Quintan, hey, thanks for being here, our CEO and co-founder. We have Maria from the product team today as well. She'll be talking about the roadmap. Then we have Louis. Louis, hey, thank you, welcome. And we have Laurent, who is our developer advocate. So welcome everybody. And then there's me. My name is Maya. I'm a moderator today, and I'm also a product marketer here at Meilisearch. So, okay, let's jump right in, and we'll start with a word from Quintan. So, Quintan, the floor is yours. Feel free to take us through your vision of the AI.
Thank you, Maya. Very happy to start the session and to tell you more about the future of search. So first, let's start by what are we doing at Meilisearch? Are we doing a search engine? Yes, but through this search engine that we built on open source, we are in fact trying to democratizing a great search experience for any website and application. This is at the heart of everything we built and shape at Meilisearch. Some of you may already have tried and probably loved our great developer experience. Next slide, please. The search domain has recently received a huge earthquake with the progress of AI, and more precisely with the democratization of LLMs and new consumer products like ChatGPT. Those have, of course, a huge impact on our industry and our product. But before talking about AI, let's perhaps come back to the fundamental of search. Next slide, please. Search has always existed. Yes, before it was a bit more archaic, but it has evolved. We left the books, the dictionaries, and the libraries for internet and online resources. With a growing number of information accessible online, on internet, we had to find a way to navigate through this. That's why we invented search engines like Google, but also search databases like Elastic. Next slide, please. Today, using a search bar to access data is obvious, and it's a reflex for everyone to grab its phone and to look for a product on an e-commerce website or to look at the last news on our favorite news media. And today, we have basically all the knowledge within our reach. But we are also probably right now at a turning point of technologies and the democratization of AI. Next slide, please. In some culture, it's already very familiar to see people asking things to their phone or taking pictures of goods they want to buy. The voice is becoming more and more crucial, and even more if you don't have any screen or if you have a very limited one, like the Apple Watch, for example, or the new Rabbit Air 1 AI pins like things. But those new technologies like the Rabbit R1 are very contested for many reasons. First, for privacy reasons, for sure, but also for the lack of information, feedback they can give you at a precise moment. The screen is often very small and cannot show a lot of information. At the opposite, the Apple Vision Pro, a kind of unlimited human-machine interface, is perhaps the most advanced technology that can help us to see what will look like in the future. Next slide, please. Overall, we can conclude that during a long time, human has to adapt itself to technologies. Everyone knows a good Googler, but now with the rise of AI, we can see the machine adapting to the human, and that's pretty fun. And that's also perhaps too deep. Next slide, please. So let's move on what Meilisearch and how Meilisearch will evolve, because we will have to continue developing Meilisearch to follow those new usage including those new usage, including we will have to be better at relevancy by first understanding the query through semantic meaning and perhaps also through intent. We will have also to create more personalized search experience and more customized for everyone. Something probably based on the website rules, but also the application logic, or, and foremost, the user's search behavior. Then, probably the next point will be to be more scalable in order to handle the massive amount of data that is generated by everyone, and perhaps in the close future, also generated by AI, generative AI. And the last point is probably the connectivity. Connectivity will be crucial. It will be priority to be connected to any kind of dev tool, but also to all the AI services. We can see today that it's very important to be connected to Llama and ChatGPT, because it might increase the benefits of using those kind of new interface and new technology by including your personal data. So we will have to find a way to migrate search also to be accessible through those new way of getting information like chat and ChatGPT. Next slide, please. But one of the biggest challenge for us at Meilisearch is, and will always continue to be, how to make technologies accessible to everyone, how to democratize the access of such new technologies at a low complexity and cost. And if we can do it today, it's because it's thanks to the community. And basically, it's thanks to you because you joined us today. So thank you very much for everyone for joining. And I will now let Maria explain our first step in this journey. Thanks everyone for listening, and enjoy the rest of the presentation. See you later.
Thank you, Quentin. Hey everyone, Maria here. So yeah, it's time to go over our most recent releases. I really hope you find them as exciting as we do, because we've worked really hard on them. Let's jump in, shall we? Next slide, please. Okay, so real quick, I'm not going to go over the whole roadmap, but just to give you a quick overview. Today, we're going to go over our Q1 releases. These include the monitoring metrics dashboard on cloud, the addition of hybrid search and embedders, and a few pretty cool performance optimizations. And as we're here, I'll just give you a sneak peek into what's planned for Q2. We're gonna work on getting SOC 2 certified. We're gonna work on adding new sources of embedders on both the open source and the cloud offerings. And we're gonna also spend some time working on our infrastructure and processes to make sure that our uptime only improves. So yeah, now that we've covered the overview, it's time for our first highlight. Cool, thank you, Maya. So we know that for some of you, especially the ones with larger data sets and traffic, indexing time has been a bottleneck. So I'm very pleased to tell you that we've heard you and that we've worked very hard to cut indexing time by at least, I'll say, 50%. So I won't go deep into the technical details, but I want to give you the general idea. Next slide, please. Okay, so we mainly done two things. The first one was to implement diff indexing. Before, when a user wanted to update a document, we had to re-index the whole thing all over again, even if you just wanted to modify one field, which is inconvenient at least. The new indexing approach makes it so that we can identify what part of the document has changed, and we only re-index the part that's needed. So that immediately makes it so that the indexing is incredibly faster, as you can see here in the chart, and it is especially beneficial for users who update only certain fields of the documents really often, but it should be beneficial for everyone. We've also introduced a new proximity setting that lets you choose between prioritizing speed or relevancy. And I know this sounds like a very hard trade-off, but we've tested it internally. We ran benchmarks on relevancy. And for the majority of the use cases we tested, the change in relevancy wasn't really perceptible to the end user. So if this is something that you think could help your use case, I encourage you to go out and test it on a staging environment or a small subset of your data first and see if the loss in relevancy is significant to your use case or not. It might be the case where you actually can't tell and it really speeds up the rest of the process. That's it for the indexing performance optimizations. And let's slide into the next highlight, which is monitoring metrics. And for this, I will take control and share my screen to share what this looks like. Just a second. Okay. Just so you know, this is an opt-in feature for the cloud offering. I think you should all see my screen right now. Is that okay?
Yes.
See some nods? Cool. Yes. So over here, you can see the Meilisearch instance. This is actually our docs project in production. So all the data that you see here is actually our own real data. And yeah, the idea of this feature is to give you an overview of your instance really quickly, but you should have a centralized view of what's going on. We hope to bring you the valuable information that you need to get the most out of Meilisearch. So if there's something that's missing here, you can drop it in the chat or open up an issue in our repo as a feature request. We'd love to hear from you and to keep improving the feature. So just to show you, this is the general overview. And over here, you can see we're looking at the data of all indexes, but you can narrow down by the index that you're interested in if that's something that you want to do. In the chart section, you can see we have the latency chart by percentile. So you will get a sense of the time that passes between you run search and Meilisearch actually returns results. There's also a maximum search queries per second chart, which gives you a glance into how the engine performs under a certain load. And this can be triggered by a certain number of visitors, or if there's a lot of indexing tasks being processed, for example. Further down, we have the bandwidth chart, which will help you identify unexpected payloads. And at the bottom, there's the API calls chart. This might be interesting for you, especially if you're implementing Meilisearch for the first time, or you're about to go into production. This view will help you identify failed calls. In this case, I have no failed calls, which is unfortunate, but you might want to dig into that if you get them. If I go back to the top, you'll see the date picker to focus on the data that you want to. There's also some presets that are the common presets. And you can also enable the real-time monitor if that's something that you need. If you want to keep a close eye on monitoring during, let's say, a social media campaign or the busy season, you can just tag that and you'll get results every 10 seconds. I should also note that we have a 30-day retention policy for all plans right now on this data. So yeah, there you go. That's the monitoring metrics dashboard in a nutshell. I will now stop sharing and give the control back to Maya to slide into our next highlight. Perfect. Thank you, Maya. So yeah, this is probably the one that you're most excited about. As you'll know, at Meilisearch, we really pride ourselves in having a top-notch keyword search. But as Kentan just mentioned, AI has certainly changed the way we work in tech. And we want to embrace that opportunity to provide you with the best possible search experience. Louis will walk you through the details of how we've achieved that. But before we go there, I just want to give you another overview of the timeline of how we've done this in the past few months, because I'm a fan of timelines. Next slide, please. Cool. So in Q3 2023, we took our first steps in AI and released semantic search in V1.3. This originally allowed for the use of Meilisearch as a vector store, and the embeddings had to be generated and provided by users. Semantic search couldn't be combined with regular keyword search just yet. Then in January, we released our V1.6 version of the engine, which included hybrid search and embedding auto generation. And this was originally available only on an open source product. So fast forward to today, and we are really excited to announce that hybrid search and embedding generation will be available on cloud in a closed beta starting next Monday with the release of V1.7. You'll be able to use OpenAI embedders and custom embedders like in V1.3. So if you're interested, you should upgrade to V1.7 next week and sign up for our waitlist. As for what's next, we are currently, as I said before, working on adding more open source embedding alternatives to our cloud offering and open source offerings for both of them. And with that, I will hand it off to Louis to walk you through the fascinating world of hybrid search. Thank you.
Hello. All right, hybrid search. What is that? Why? A search engine is an interface that is all about finding what the user wants to find, deciphering user intent. Unfortunately, we have to use a lossy text interface for this. We can't read the user's mind just yet. To understand how hybrid search helps us find what the user is looking for, we need to understand both keyword search and semantic search. Keyword search is Meilisearch Classic, what the engine is doing by default and why you all love us. The focus of keyword search is the word. It looks for words in the user's query and tries to find them verbatim in the documents. Like, if I look for cute beagle puppies, it will look for the words cute, the word beagle, and the word puppies in all documents, and the best documents are the ones that feature the most words from the query. So it's best if you want to find a specific brand of coffee makers, superhero, or puppies. Now, an advanced keyword search engine is not stopping at that. When users are typing their queries, sometimes they make typos, at least I know I do. I'm looking for Batman, and then I write Batman, but keyword search can correct that. Well, I'm not only an erring human, I'm also lazy. I like to see results as soon as I type so that I can stop when the correct result appears and not write it in full. A keyword search is excellent in all of these situations because it focuses on the word as it is written, the letters that compose it. It is great to uncover lexical intent. In contrast, the focus of semantic search is the word. What, again? Yes, the meaning of a word. Semantic search understands the meaning of words in the documents and the user's query, and it looks for documents whose words are closest in meaning to the words of the query. So going back to my cute beagle puppies example, semantic search will understand I'm looking for dogs and will look for documents containing them. It might return documents containing all the dogs or even the bassets. The words don't have to match perfectly in the documents. Compared with keyword search, it is great even when the query contains words that aren't in the documents, because semantic search will find documents containing words whose meaning is close to your query. Synonyms for free, if you will. It is also useful when users don't exactly know the name of the concept they're looking for or don't remember the title of the movie they're looking for, but can describe them. Lastly, it allows for discovery. When users don't know what movie they want to watch tonight, but they know the vibe it will have, like, I don't know, comforting movie about cute puppies. In summary, semantic search is about uncovering semantic intent. That checks out. Now, you might think, all this, the computer understands the meaning of words, sounds a little too much like magic, right? To understand a little bit of how all of that works, let's embed the word puppy in the semantic space. The semantic space is a vector space of semantic properties. I know the math stuff can get a bit hairy, so let's focus on visuals. In this graph, you have 3 axes, so 3 semantic properties: juvenile, canine, feline. To embed puppy in that toy semantic space, you look at the qualities of that word. A puppy is a juvenile canine, so it gets a 1 on these dimensions. And it gets a 0 on feline because a dog is not a cat, and today we learned. And from there, you just reduce that word puppy to that 101 on canine, feline, juvenile. Yeah, that's a vector. And using mathstuff and vectors, you can tell that it's closer to dog, 100, than it is to cat, 010. So you see, no magic. Well, real world models are a lot more complicated than that. They have thousands of dimensions, and we don't really know what they exactly mean. So yeah, not magic, but like any sufficiently advanced technology, still a bit indistinguishable from magic. Not something you or I are going to rediscover in our garage tomorrow. All right, now that we understand both keyword and semantic search, how to tie back to hybrid search? We established that keyword search excels at lexical intent, like fixing typos, while semantic search covers semantic intent, like finding synonyms that aren't in your documents. Why don't we have both? Well, that's hybrid search. It runs both a keyword and semantic search on any given request, and it keeps the documents that have the best relevancy scores from both sources, best of both worlds. With that, hybrid search runs the whole gamut of user intents. It is useful in all of these diverse situations. Now, what makes our hybrid search unique? Number 1, it has great performance. We built a bespoke vector store that can index 15 million vectors in less than a workday and is able to index incrementally. 2, it offers flexibility. You can choose how your documents will be turned into text to be embedded using document templates, instead of having to provide that text as a standalone and redundant field inside of the documents. And we all know what happens when you have to provide redundant fields, right? You can also choose your embedding model. You can even choose your embedder provider. But number 3, at its core, it's so simple to use. Meilisearch does all the work of generating these vectors for you, so you can use the regular search interface with all the features you love. Filter, sort, they just work with semantic and hybrid search. But yeah, enough talking. Strict will give you a taste of that hybrid search. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Louis. So I'm Laurent, aka Strift. I take care of developer relations here at Meilisearch, and it looks like today I'm tasked with the also important responsibility of showing you how you can integrate hybrid search in your applications and how that will improve the search experience for your users. But first, let me show you the app we'll use. I can have a common thread for this demo. So let me share my screen. Could confirm that you see it now. Okay, I see people nodding. That's my cue. All right. Right, so for those who don't know it, this is Where to Watch. It's one of our demo applications to demo search. This is built with Next.js. And basically, it allows you to search for movies. Say I were to look for Barbie, I would find a movie, and I'm able to find a streaming platform to go and watch that. So this is nice and all, but it only supports full text search, and we know it only can take us so far. So if I was looking for not a movie, but say a concept. I didn't remember the name of the movie, and I was looking for that movie about a green ogre. Well, I wouldn't really be able to find Shrek. And fortunately for us, this is where semantic search can help, and this is where hybrid search does too. So let's see how we can achieve that with Meilisearch. First, how do we want to do this? As we said, we want to use a large language model to create embeddings of our documents so that we will be able to do semantic matching. And then on the other side, we want our front-end application to also use that same embedder to embed the search queries coming from your users so that Meilisearch can do its matching magic. So let's start by configuring the embedders. And for that, we will open our cloud dashboard. All right, so this is Meilisearch Cloud. This is where you land just after logging in on your team homepage. You might have several teams like me. You can select your project here. In my case, I would select the webinar demo. And here I'm on my project page. A project is more or less equivalent to a Meilisearch database. So you have the name, the URL, API keys, monitoring that Maria just showed you, and indexes. This is where I have my movies indexes, where I have the movies that we're searching against in the app I just shown. Let's go to this index settings. This is where you can configure everything index related, the attributes, ranking rules, you name it. And of course, our topic of the day, the embedders. I will delete that. Forgot to do it before the demo. So let's create an embedder. I can click here. And as Luis said, I'm able to select the provider I want to use for my embedder. In my case, I want OpenAI, so I will just go to the next page. After selecting my provider, I can configure the model I want to use to embed my documents. Let's use text embedding 3 small, the latest that OpenAI shipped. I need to give my OpenAI key here. So I will give this here. Why does Meilisearch need this? As Luis said, Meilisearch will handle the communication with the OpenAI API for us so that we don't have to handle creation of embeddings, storing them, retrying in case of errors and things like this. This is why we give our OpenAI API key here. Then I select the dimensions I want for my vectors, and I can move to the document template. I love this part because for me, this is where part of the magic happens. Basically, instead of letting OpenAI just make sense of every field I have in my JSON, in my documents, I can give it a prompt-like string so that it knows what the document contains. So in our case, documents are actually movies. So I can start with a template like a movie titled doc title with description start with doc overview. For those not familiar with it, this is the Liquid templating language. It's open source, it's great, it's built by Shopify. Basically, it allows you to incorporate words or data, sorry, coming from your documents inside the string. So say I consider that the release year of the movie is important. I can edit that and say a movie titled, doc titled, released in doc release year. Whose description starts with blah, blah, blah. All right, that looks good to me. Let's create the embedder. We can see that our embedders appear here. I only have one, so it's named default, and we have the settings we configured. Now, in reality, this might take a bit of time, depending on the size of the database, the actual large language model you're using to generate embeddings. But for the sake of this demo, I went ahead and did that already, so we don't have to wait. So with that in place, Meilisearch is now able to create embeddings automatically every time we add or update a document in our database. We're halfway there. Now we need our application. When they send queries, we need Meilisearch to understand that it needs to use the same default embedder to process those queries so that it can do the matching. In the case of our application, that configuration happens in the front end. Fortunately for us, this is just a one-line change in our code. So I will show you how to do it with JavaScript because this app is built with React. but it works the same with any of our SDKs. So I open my VS Code, and this is the part of my code where I'm basically creating my Meilisearch client. I'm initializing it here. I'm giving it a host, my API key, and some necessary configuration like the primary key, pagination information. To enable hybrid search for my queries, I simply need to include these few lines. I'm adding a hybrid object, and I'm saying I want to use the default embedder, and I want the semantic ratio to be 0.5. I'll come back to the semantic ratio later. But that is it. That's all we need to enable hybrid search in the client. And now every time we use this Meilisearch client to make request, Meilisearch would understand that it needs to use this embedder to process it. All right, so if I didn't lie, things should work now. Let's give it a try. So if you remember our query, that movie about a green ogre didn't bring any results when we had only full text search. Let's see if some semantic capabilities can help with that. You may have noticed this small handle over here, which allows me to configure the semantic ratio. Simply put, the semantic ratio allows you to configure how semantic the search should be. So 0 would be a traditional full text search, whereas 1 would be a vector search without any full text search capabilities. Everything in between is hybrid. So let's see if I've moved that to say 20%, then I can already see my movie that I was looking for, which is Shrek in my case, coming up in the top results. It's not very, very high though. Let's see what it would look like with 50% semantic. Now I can see that the Shrek movie is first, and I can actually see that a lot of other movies about ogres and green people also come up in the search results. So that's great. But maybe my description is not always going to be like this. Maybe sometimes I want to look for a movie like Star Wars. I want to look Star Wars, but I want to watch like the first movies that were released because for some reason the director didn't release them in order. So let's look for Star Wars first released movie. First movie. Of course. It didn't work as expected, but we can see that the Star Wars movies is coming up here. Maybe I should have typed, maybe I should increase the ratio. Star Wars first release. Yeah, doesn't want to work. Anyway, you get the idea. If I want to look for the first episode instead of Star Wars, this time it's going to work, right? Okay, this time it works. I can find the actual first episode, and it can also work, say, if I'm looking for a movie that I know the name in my own language, but I don't know the actual original name of the movie. Say I were to type in French for The Lord of the Rings, I would type Le Seigneur des Anneaux. Well, there's a little leap of faith to do here, especially if you don't speak French, but trust me, it means the same thing. And we can see actually that it appears in the search results here. We have The Lord of the Rings at the top of the search result. So it's not magic, but almost as close as I can get anyway. And we ourselves are already reaping the rewards of this magic. And can you guess where? In our docs, obviously, we have implemented hybrid search so that, say, if I were to search for artificial intelligence, yeah, I would be able to find the documentation pages related to vector search, whereas before there would have been no results here because no pages in our docs make explicit mention of artificial intelligence. So full text search wouldn't be able to give our users results. And now instead of having nothing, our users are actually able to find, well, the docs they've been looking for. And I guess that's it for me and for this quick demo. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed doing it. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat. I will be happy to answer them. And yeah, thank you for your attention. Back to you, Maya.
Amazing presentation. Thank you so much. I see that there is a bunch of questions in the chat and we are just about to get to them. Just let me wrap it up really quickly. Yeah, that's almost like magic. And as Maria mentioned, this hybrid search is available as a closed beta. It will be available, excuse me, next week on March 12th, but the waitlist registrations are open already now. So the link will be dropping in the chat. If Leon will drop it in a sec, and you'll be able to fill out the form and sign up for the beta, where our team will get in touch and we'll talk through the needs and also be able to guide you a little bit better through the process of implementation. We will also be collecting feedback at that stage. So of course, if you're interested, feel free to fill out the form and we'll be happy to see. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Ran. I will just also make a mention that we have a Meilisearch roadmap, which is public. It's available for everybody. So if you have any thoughts, and I saw that there were already some requests as well in the chat about hybrid search and what's next for us, you could always submit your feature requests there. You can also learn about the progress of the features that you're following and that you submitted. And you could also see what just launched. It's just one of the many ways of learning about what's new and our latest updates in product. And so by doing that, you will help us execute on our vision, coming back to the Quentin's presentation, but hopefully maybe not looking like that. But yeah, I think this is it for the presentation, and we are ready to take some questions in the Q&A. At this point, I will encourage everybody to also unmute yourselves and ask questions live. And I'll also be going through the chat little by little. I see that our colleagues are doing a great job catching up with everything. So I'll just take a second to see if there is anything that jumps out. One thing, and I think this appeared a couple of times, is that recording will be shared, of course. So you will be able to share it and open a discussion, as Maria mentioned, and you know, just continue this conversation, continue giving feedback to us after we wrap up the webinar. Okay, let's see. What are the questions? Does anybody want to ask questions live and unmute themselves right now? I see that there's a lot of questions about embeddings. Maria, actually, would you mind refreshing? Because I saw that there was some questions about the embeddings. What are the next options? Right now we have OpenAI embeddings. We have the latest models. You mentioned that we have something coming up as well, cooking up for 1.8. Would you mind just refreshing that for the group?
Absolutely, yeah. So as you said, right now we're starting with the OpenAI models. You can also provide your custom embeddings. That was already there. It's been there for a while. We're working on adding Hugging Face embedders on cloud, but you can already use them on the open source side. And moving forward, we have a couple of ideas. We want to add more providers. There were a couple of ideas from our open source users asking for some sort of REST API, so you could potentially use different embedding models in a certain format. We're also, Keto, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're thinking of adding the OLAMA embedders, which would be sort of in line with that RESTful API format. That's what we've been thinking about, but obviously we're super open to any of your requests or ideas. Yes, that's correct, Keto. That's not in V1.7. I'm talking about like moving forward, the possibilities that we're considering right now. It would be out in V1.8.
Yeah. Just, I guess I'll give an introduction to Keto. We're referring to Clement. It's our CTO. He's been very active in the chat, but yeah, we're calling him Keto. So this is our colleagues. Thanks for replying to so many questions. As Quentin mentioned, ask as many questions, even if we don't manage to get to them. Is there a time frame on high availability, and will it support geo-distribution? For example, one server in the US and another in the EU to achieve low latency for users on both continents. I believe this is something in the works. Right, Maria is nodding, yes.
Yes, in the works. I can't give a timeline right now because we've been working on other infrastructure changes, so we've pushed it out a bit, but definitely something that we want to support and we will be supporting in the future.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, Laurent, Cara helpfully mentioned in the comments that there was a typo in the template. So the prompt tuning maybe didn't work as well. But of course, the beauty of the demo live release is always
Yeah, I blame it on the demo effect. I typed this query like 20 times.
all been there. Anthony Music is asking, are results better with big dimensions embeddings? And then there is an answer. Kera, did you want to maybe answer that and summarize the answer, or Louis?
Maybe Louis, you know better than me. You can
Yeah,
take it.
sure. So we did some empirical testing and testing. Yeah, it was like we had better results, like empirically, using the default Hugging Face model we're using, which is BAEE English base. I will type it in the chat. And then with the 882 model, now with the release of the latest embedding models from OpenAI, things might be a bit different. By the way, we added support for them in V1.7. So we'll all be able to answer this question soon.
All right, thank you. There's another question from Anthony, and that's, is Azure an available provider? And you meant as an embedder. So this is not yet, but this is a perfect item to also add to the roadmap as a request for us, so the team can consider. And if the more details you can provide us, the better. We are actually looking at the prioritizations for the next stages for that as well, as Mary mentioned. Cool. Will it be possible to filter by the semantic score? Anthony has another question for that. Anthony, I'm not sure if you received an answer here. So Kero also answered, if you mean restrict to the nearest documents, you can expose the score details and only get the nearest ones only. And also we've seen the semantic ratio as well during the demo. Okay. Let me see if there are any other questions that we didn't answer or might be useful to mention. Louis, did you have something that you saw and you thought might be useful to reiterate for the group?
There's a question from Thomas Rabet in the chat.
Go for it.
Who asked, what are the cost impact of adding OpenAI? Well, first of all, it depends. You don't have to use OpenAI specifically, but the cost you pay are to OpenAI depending on your usage. I'm not sure that answers your questions though.
Well, do you have some kind of example from your live usage of the cost you may have? I don't know, if you have like a database with 1 million entry and you want to search on it, and you need to use OpenAI to get the embedding information and then to query the database. What should be do you have some kind of numbers that you can provide to us?
I can look at our own usage. I have to admit I don't have the numbers at hand though.
Okay.
Maybe this is something we can follow up with and yeah, and look from our side and provide this information just for we have a better idea.
All right, thank you.
There is a question from Julio. Does the user have flexibility to set text splitters for doc embeddings?
Not sure what is meant by text splitters.
Yeah, Julio, could you please specify?
So what I mean is, like, when text is too long, say you have a description and it's too many tokens, right? You have to make some decisions on how to split it on to then embed the various documents, right? Does the user have any flexibility on over how that's done?
All right. So at the moment, we have a document template that allows you to write a template in a liquid template language, which is like the template language from Shopify. And there you can you can fill it with the fields of your documents, and you can use like filters like truncate after a certain number of words. So that helps with making sure you are using only the relevant parts of your documents. Like you can choose the exact fields that will be relevant. You can add static context to the template, and you can truncate the template. Now, the strategy when the rendered template is too long is currently depending on the embedder. So if you had some template and it resulted in text that is too long, then in OpenAI, we will just split the tokenized text and do embeddings, multiple embeddings with a sliding window, so that we retain some context in all of the embeddings. And for Hugging Face, we'll just truncate after the first, once we get up over the limit. And this is not yet configurable, but that's a very good suggestion. I think this is something that's necessary. You have a use case behind this. Yeah, by all means, like suggest that on the roadmap.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Please do. Question from Simon. Hi, Simon. Does the new optimized indexing also optimizes the CPU RAM usage for green IT? So what you specified after that for green IT by usage of the lower CPU and RAM can allow us not to upgrade the hardware, and is better for the earth, more sustainable, because faster indexing does not mean automatically lower CPU usage. And Clement answered in the chat that we did a lot of work for it in V1.6 and V1.7 in performance optimization to do the minimal amount of work possible to index document modification. So that was part of the by design improvement. Let's see if there's any other questions at the bottom. A question, how do you handle the noise brought up by the vector search? Vector search retrieves the nearest neighbors and it brings them up even if they're far. While this noise is not on the first page, it can easily show up in facets, sorts by price, and other subsequent calls to the search API. Do you truncate the results in a certain level of relevance? If yes, how do you choose the threshold? Do you have the takers for this question? Sigur's already typing.
Yeah, like Kara said, for now we don't apply a threshold. So that means it will appear, and in particular, currently vector search is returning all the documents because mostly they will all have a vector with a certain distance, even if it's super far. So we do expose the semantic score, so it's possible in your front end to manually filter out documents that are not relevant. But yeah, at the moment, for the other fields things you mentioned, it's not possible. This is something that is in consideration. It is like having a ranking score threshold is not super as straightforward to implement as you could think it is, because when you factor in the fact that we have sorting rules, it means that the score is not always monotonically decreasing. Like they could go up if you go to another slice of your sorted values. So yeah, we're giving thoughts to the idea, and at some point I think it will come. And for now, you can access the score and manually filter them out in your front end.
All right, thank you. And then Laurent, you left the comment as well on that in the chat, right? Did you want to comment?
Yeah, just to say it for those who might not have read, but yeah, as Luis said, some users are actually filtering out in their front end based on the semantic score until we have like a definite API for that. But as I said, feels more of like a workaround for now.
Right, thank you. Another from Julio, if using hybrid search with the OpenAI embedder, every query will also result in an OpenAI API call. So how much overhead does that add? Kero says, yes, it will add some, but we want to probably cache the most important search requests. Any comments on that from the experts? Okay, question from Manuel. Those are jumping in quickly. How persistent are embeddings considering reindexing? If I restart an instance, or reindex all documents on demand, will embeddings get flushed and generated from scratch too? Would it be a good practice to generate and store vectors in the main DB, like Postgres with PG vector, with an external routine and import them to Meilisearch? And is there an easy way to actually let Meilisearch generate the vectors and then store them back to Postgres for persistence, kind of keeping things in sync? Easy one.
No, that's a great question. Not that persistent. Like indeed, well, if you restart an instance, they will be persisted to vector store. If you do reindex all documents, they will get regenerated, because reindexing means you remove your document and then you put it back again. And so we lost the companion vector. Currently, we are checking when there's an update to your documents if it affects like the text that from the document template, and if it will result in needing to change the embedding due to the document changing. And we don't regenerate if it didn't change. We don't let you get back the vectors at the moment. We have proposals to let you get back the vectors so that you can store them. Just a little bit of note about this is that if you attach the vectors to manually to a document, it will work, but then they won't get regenerated when your document changes. So yeah, we need to find a way to have best of both worlds here, like letting you save your vectors and say, okay, I'm reindexing from scratch, take these vectors, but then for future updates of documents, you want to regenerate them if the document template, the rendered document template change it, because you still want your vectors to be up to date.
Right. Well, we hope this answers partially the question. I'm just seeing if there's anything else in the chat. I believe we covered most of the questions that were coming up. Of course, feel free to follow up with anything that's still unclear. Sign up for the waitlist, and you'll be the first to know when the hybrid search is out, March 12th, next week. So we'll be happy to also provide additional information then for those who want to try it out. Any last remarks from our experts? Any questions that I might have missed? Any thoughts? Who do you think had the best memes within the presentation? There was a tough competition on that one, I'll tell you that. Okay, I think this is it. We'll make sure to also follow up in the chat if there's anything that we might have missed. Again, thank you everybody very, very much for spending this last hour with us. Of course, we'll be here. You'll be hearing from us with the recording, and feel free to anything that comes up additionally, let us know, and see you on the next one. Thank you, everybody.